All right, we are live. My name is Dr.Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon with Swiftfire, True TV. Super excited today because this has been a big week, actually, just a huge week. I'm sure you guys are feeling it, but today I'm so honored to have Representative Woody Jenkins here with us. Just for a bit, he's the busiest man in the universe, but I finally got to get a few minutes of his time. On the back end of some really exciting news that just came out yesterday. And first of all, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Sharnael. Thank you for inviting me.
So before we go into the news and the explanation kind of behind that, because this is not just a local setup here, of course, there's going to be a lot of local people watching, but this is universal. This is going to be all over the world sharing. So there might not be everybody knowing exactly who you are and how you got involved with this, but also just to give a broader picture of like who you are as a person too. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you even got here to this place?
Well, I'm Woody Jenkins, and I'm from here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I've lived here all my life, grown up here, and went to my grade high school, Estruma High School, and then LSU in journalism, and earned a law degree. But all my life, I've really been involved in journalism from the time I was in elementary school to today, and starting and running television stations and newspapers. Currently, we publish 3 community newspapers here in Baton Rouge, but I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 52 years, and we have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. We live right here in the heart of Baton Rouge, but we have about 6 acres. So it's Baton Rouge is a pretty large town, but this is almost like a rural setting that we have. And we raise chickens, and we do a lot of things here and have fun with some of our grandchildren live right here on the property. So that's fun. But I had the opportunity to serve in the legislature for many years, 28 years, from 1972, Louisiana House, until the year 2000, and had the opportunity to author and pass over 300 major bills. But one of the most important things that happened was in 1973, our state held a constitutional convention to draft a new state constitution, which is a very difficult thing to do. It took over a year, and I was an elected delegate and served on the Bill of Rights Committee. And as things played out, I actually got to write most of what is now our current Bill of Rights of our state constitution. We call it the Louisiana Declaration of Rights, and you can find it online. But that's the last state of the 50 that was successful in passing a constitution. So when it comes to things like healthcare, my emphasis has always been on freedom of choice. I authored over the years many laws related to
300, right? 300 laws or more.
Right, but many in the healthcare area too. For example, chiropractic was illegal. We passed the law to legalize it. Midwifery was illegal. We passed that, giving optometrists the power to prescribe prescription drugs for diagnostic purposes, and many other things in the healthcare field. So freedom of healthcare choice is really important to me, and liberty generally. Yeah. And I will get into a lot of those battles now. Since the year 2000, I've continued to be in media, and the last 8 years have been the Republican chairman here in East Baton Rouge Parish, which is the largest parish in the state.
That is awesome.
But this was a historic week, and let me mention something about that. Yesterday, the Louisiana House signed a petition which takes Louisiana out of the governor's emergency powers declaration. He actually, if you go back to 1993, I was involved in drafting our law, giving the governor certain emergency powers when there's a crisis of one sort. But the things that I put in there were some limitations on that power. And one of the limitations was that if either house lost confidence in what he was doing, then a majority of the members could sign a petition to end the emergency powers. Now, the problem with our governor, John Bel Edwards, is he's gone far beyond what the law allowed him to do. Under the emergency powers law, there are certain enumerated powers the governor has. None of those give him, in even the most remote interpretation, the ability to shut down businesses or to require the masking of people. That's just not anywhere in those powers. So he's been able to get away with it. The courts have been slow to rule on different aspects of what he's doing. Most of those court cases are still pending. But meanwhile, the House or the Senate has had this power all along, but they had difficulty getting the signatures. Finally, yesterday, 65 of the 105 members signed the petition ending the emergency. So today, for the first time in 7 months, I mean, Louisiana is an open state. We've got our freedom back. We don't have to wear a mask. You can go in any place that you normally would. There's no restrictions on numbers. And of course, I haven't worn a mask anyway. And I don't, to me, it was like bowing to him and his illegal authority that he has presumed to take. But it's a great day this morning, the first time to have our freedom back in months.
Yeah, and are they going to announce this at all on the quote news? I mean, because I haven't seen anything. Maybe I just missed it, but it seems like this should be like a big jumping up and down party time for everybody.
Yeah. We, one of our newspapers that we publish here is the St. George Leader, and it came out yesterday. No, it came out Thursday before, and we were foreshadowing that we said that the speaker is reportedly preparing a petition to lift the emergency order. Not coincidentally, the Speaker of the House is subject to a recall petition in his own district. And some members say the speaker has to make something happen before the end of the session or face consequences back home. So the recall efforts that going on around the state has had an impact here with the Speaker of the House. And he's the one that he's been more of an ally of the governor, really, but he's signed the petition. He got the extra signatures that were necessary. So here's the headline in the Advocate this morning: GOP takes nuclear option on virus rules. And of course, I don't think this is about a virus and hasn't been in a long time. It's about control, and it's about the selection, to just continuously put fear in the hearts of people so that they will accept things like wearing a mask everywhere. The day that he made his order back in March, I got a call from a pastor here, Reverend Tony Spell, who has Life Tabernacle Church. And he said, Mr. Woody, he says, I hear that if we have church, they're going to come and try to arrest me. Would you come broadcast our service? Because we broadcast a lot of live things. Our newspaper does on our Facebook page, Central City News. And I said, well, sure, Brother Tony, I will come. So we broadcasted service, and sure enough, they arrested him the next day and put him in parish prison. He got out on bail, and he was under a court order not to have church. He was confined to his home, and they attached a leg bracelet. The judge, you're going to go back to jail for at least 6 months if you walk out of this house. He lives on the church property, so from going from his house to the sanctuary is really maybe 100 feet or so. But he such a courageous man, and for the 3 times a week since March, he has held church and really defiance of the governor's illegal orders, because the governor ordered all churches to close in Louisiana. It's unbelievable. And so it's as though there's no First Amendment, that we have no right of freedom of religion, no right to freedom of assembly, no right to speak. But he is one of the few pastors in America that never missed a service. He's been defamed, maligned. 8 members of the congregation were terminated from their employment for going to the church.
Whoa.
Their employers saw them on the TV broadcast. But some of our broadcasts have been viewed by as many as 500,000 people. So he's become like the premier pastor in America. So the people who were trying to put him in jail and trying to close him, mainly the governor, they've created someone. He was ready to go, but one of the great pastors in America, the spotlight has been shown on him. Now, something about that I want to mention. So there's been 90 services since then, 3 times a week, anywhere from 500 to 3,000 people per service. There's been no social distancing. There's been no wearing of masks in the services. Not one person has died, and not one person has been hospitalized. What he says now, he says, well, I think my congregation now has herd immunity. And he says that, other churches and all that, where people have been at home and hiding and not meeting and all like that, they now suddenly coming out and they're facing something they're not prepared to, whereas this happened gradually over time for the members of that church. But I just feel like we need to live our lives. And I'm 73 years old. I don't expect to live forever. But while I'm here, I want to live. I'm not going to huddle down and hide.
And we've discussed over the months now since we connected. I guess it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. We've discussed several times about my situation, and even trying to get the truth out from a medical perspective, and what I'm seeing with my patients. And I don't personally have a clinic here anymore, but I do a lot in person and or via phone consultation, because my group is all over the world. But I did have a clinic, and I was actually supposed to take a job in a clinic, but literally the next day is when the quarantine happened. My clinic flooded in 2006, in the big flood, 2016. But we, you know, for me, the masks are actually causing more problems, way more problems. And then, like, I'm totally 100% in agreement with you. People are losing jobs over trying to tell the truth and totally being censored. I'm right now not allowed to go in any groups on Facebook. I was kicked off 30 days one time. They remove all my posts. I mean, you can go on my Facebook and see where I have just list of stuff that they remove, and it's all just real science. It's real data. And so as a scientist and a truther and a patriot, this bothers me that we are not allowed to tell the truth here in America. Like, what is going on with that? You know, and what happened to I grew up in the days where, you know, I got chicken pox and my sister didn't, but we all stayed at home to get the chicken pox, to get it over with, and like played in the dirt and hung out outside and stayed in nature. And yeah, what about the people who already had COVID, but they're still having to wear a mask? You don't have to wear a mask anymore if you've already had it. You're immune, and you won't, but yet everyone's wearing masks. And even with this thing that came out yesterday, I like told a bunch of people, and everyone was like, oh, but is that safe? And I'm like, oh my God. So even if the CDC comes out and says we were wrong, we lied, the tests are wrong, the numbers are wrong, no matter what, it seems like I'm saying. And even if we have this freedom now from this emergency thing being lifted, you know, I do hope that the people can be unprogrammed or deprogrammed in a way to actually get that fear that you were talking about, and just be like, dude, it's not a thing. It's yes, there is a virus. It's less than the flu. People are going to have flu and have for years had flu symptoms every single year, all the time. And there's people who have less resistance to be able to deal with it, usually in their older ages. But this has just taken a life force of its own. When we had 60 million H1N1 issues, we did not shut anything down. We're talking about 9,000 people, and they're shutting everything down. This is messed up. And I'm seeing people with alcoholism, marriages breaking up. I cannot even tell you how many funerals I went to from pre-existing and or other conditions not being taken care of, and or suicide. Suicide hotlines are up 600% right now. So this is infuriating to me as a doctor, as a teacher, as a truther, as a patriot. And so I'm so thankful for people like you. What do you tell the people who, now that this is out, because you just literally said you don't have to wear a mask anymore, but don't you think there's actually going to be people who will do it anyway, even though?
Well, absolutely. And I think that it's been proven that fear triggers some things in the brain that makes people kind of strange in what they do and their behavior. There's really, I think, two major ways to control people. One is by fear, and the other one is dependency. The dependency here comes through the checks, you know, that we're going to send you checks if you just do such and such. But the fear is just all pervasive. And it's a lot more than about the edicts and the illegal mandates. It's about the fear. Even a lot of, let's say, conservative Republicans who are older, who all their lives have been, let's say, freedom fighters, living in fear. And I just, it's very strange to me. I don't know how long people expect to live. I mean, you know, the average life expectancy in Louisiana is 75. The average COVID death in Louisiana is 75. Exactly. The average life expectancy in the United States is 78, and the average COVID death is 78. Now, none of us are looking to die, but I mean, what does it take? If you have 4.5 million people here in Louisiana who had the last 7 months of their lives on hold, I feel like the last 7 months for me were just wasted. You know, I didn't get to live the life that I know. What is that? That's like, that's about over 2 million years of living that was taken away from those 4.5 million people. So what's the value of our freedom? how do you put a price tag on our freedom? As John Bell Edwards, oh, we're going to lose some federal funds. Congressman Garrett Graves has said we're not. But what if we did? What value, what do you place on our liberty? The right to just go to the coffee shop that you're used to going to, or go to have lunch where you're used to hang out with your friends, to have a birthday party, to have a funeral for your mama when she dies and be able to invite her loved ones, or be able to go to a hospital and be with a loved one when they're ill. I wouldn't want to be in the hospital without a loved one with me, because I know the bad things that happen in hospitals. What is the price? What's the value of all those things? There's no price. They're invaluable. And yet we're just so willing to give up our freedoms over these fears.
Yeah, we missed my grandmother's 95th birthday and our big family reunion that we have every year. Obviously, the kids are missing like graduations and proms and just normal things that should be the emphasis. I mean, I think about not just the nursing homes, although I know a lot of people who work in nursing homes and they're saying that they are just popping off, and it's not COVID. They're dying of just being sad and bored, and no one's coming to talk to them. There's no purpose. I mean, it's been months, but the kids in the schools with these masks, I mean, if I was a kid in school, I mean, I had my own version of fears like Russia and bombs and things because we were in Germany. But at the time, this is like psychologically, what does this do to a kid that has to be in fear every day that they might infect someone, that someone might infect them, that the teacher could get sick because of them, and no oxygen, they're having headaches and passing out and having bacterial stuff going on. That is not okay. That's just not okay.
We are being programmed. In fact, we've already been programmed. How many times when you see a friend, you're saying goodbye and they say, be safe, be safe, be safe. Let me tell you something. I don't want anybody to tell me that. I don't need anybody to tell me to be safe. That's not what my life is about. I'm not about just protecting myself against every possible risk. I'm about living life as a free man. And that means taking risks. I take risks every day. When I get in that automobile, when I make a speech or an appearance, I mean, when I invest in a business or write a story, I'm taking risks. That's what freedom is all about. That's what gives you great opportunities for gain, for success. When you're hiding just so paranoid and fearful, nothing happens. But there are people who want to shut down this country. They've been very successful at it. They have their own agenda. I think the mail ballots are very much related to what's been going on. Yep. They wanted a situation where people would even be afraid to go vote.
Yes.
So agree to vote by mails. And there's all sorts of shenanigans that have gone on and will go on with mail ballots. We've had 1% of the people voting by mail. Now it's going to be like 35%. And you can't even count the ballots. You notice that Pelosi has said, the president, we're going to have to firebomb him out or gas him to get him out of the White House. Well, why would that be? Maybe he will see what fraud goes on. And how do you detect it? Because I had a stolen election in 1996 for the U.S. Senate. And we discovered and proved 35,000 fraudulent votes where the signature of the person who supposedly voted didn't match the signature on their voter registration card. And out of nearly 2 million votes, my opponent won by supposedly 5,000 votes. But the 35,000 illegal votes didn't matter. Nothing was done. She was the United States Senator for 18 years as a result of that. It's just amazing. Wow. So once the fraud occurs and once the votes are counted, it's almost impossible to undo. And when you do it on this massive scale, especially so. So we're being set up, I think, to take away so much of our liberties. I notice Joe Biden says that he just wants everybody to do masks from now on. Well, where is he, man? He's been hiding in his basement, literally in his basement. And I guess that's what he thinks everybody should be doing. How can we be a strong nation? How can we be a force in this world? How can we be the leader of the world? Where do we stand with powers like China who are confronting us? What if they invaded us? Are we even strong enough? We're an obese nation. We're an uneducated nation. We're a fearful nation. How could we stand up against a real threat, not the COVID, but a real threat to our country with the fear and the dependency that exists right now?
Yeah, and speaking of voting, I'm really encouraged actually because I live right up the road from where people are, one of the places where people are voting early, and I'm seeing lines every single day. Every single day, people are up there from the beginning all the way to the end, which is very encouraging. I finally actually went out there, and I'm like you, I don't wear a mask. You know, I'm not going to get into that, but I felt like I was in the twilight zone because you know, you had to wear a mask to do this. I've only worn a mask twice for a very short period of time to walk into a courtroom and to do something else. But I literally felt like I am in another planet standing in this line where everyone is, you know, here. I literally was like, am I in a movie? This doesn't even seem like my real life. Like, I can't believe this is like life right now, where there's X's and we're, you know, social distancing. There was a cop or two, you know, everything was gloves and sanitizer, and I literally, anyway, I'm glad that people are voting. I did hear on the debate, which I think you did too, they're talking about masks to 2022. Now, if someone had said in March to us, hey, we're going to do quarantine, and also you're going to have to wear masks for the next 2 years, don't you think everybody would be like, what? And but it's that whole frog, you know, turn up the heat system. It's like, well, it's just going to be for a little while. Oh, but a little while longer. And then they give us all this like false science that is backed by whoever, but it's not real. I mean, all it takes is a real person to actually look into real science to find out that this is not the truth. So it's,
let me just say, let me mention 2 examples. Yesterday, my wife went to vote at the state archives. There were about 400 people in line. It went very smoothly, but every person except her had a mask on. And she was stopped 4 times by policemen to be offered a mask. She was never intimidated, but there's a pressure that comes when you're the only person out of 400, and people want to conform. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to be different. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to call attention to themselves. On the other hand, last night I broadcast live the Denham Springs versus Central football game live from Yellow Jacket Stadium in Denham Springs, Louisiana. It was bad weather. There were probably about 1,000 people there. I counted 20 masks. So in that part of the population, you could see the resistance, mainly a blue collar group of people the blue collar people tend to be strong. They tend to be independent, and they tend to not to cower as much. And you could see that. Now, the governor's order had just been undone by the petition. I don't even know if people realize that, but some people are very much wanting to conform. I'll tell you this. I grew up in the 1950s. Everybody that I looked up to was a World War II veteran. My dad, my uncle, my teachers, my principal, my pastor, the bus driver, the pharmacist. These were real men. They had seen what war was like. They had seen what it was to fight for your freedom. They understood what our freedoms were because they had seen other countries where the freedoms had been taken away. They knew what it was for your buddy to die in your arms while you're all fighting for our country. They loved America. And my daddy and these men would go back anytime to fight again. And my daddy told me that. I'm ready. And even up into old age, he was ready to go. What I see today is so many people, even men, who've turned into sheep. They're just sheep. They're just followers. They're afraid. Don't be afraid. Be a man. Stand up. I'm speaking to the men. Stand up and be a leader.
You're making me cry. So we talked earlier about the church and about Christians, and I happen to be a Christian. I am not a minister. I came from a ministry background. I'm now a doctor, a teacher, I don't know, an author. I do a lot of different things. But the number one thing that I get when I post things from Christians is, well, we're just praying that the Lord has this. We're just praying that God's got this. And we're so glad that you're doing what you're doing. I could never do that. You know, and we discussed this, and it just is aggravating to me because the cells of God are in every single one of you who are watching right now. And we aren't here on this planet to be sitting around watching Netflix on the couch. You know, we're actually called for our purpose to be here and to be the hands and feet, to be God in action. We're sent here to occupy, to have a kingdom, to take dominion. And yet there's people who are like, well, I'm praying, and not that the prayer isn't good, but there is a certain level of responsibility and us taking ownership and some action involved here. What do you have to say about that? Gosh, I'm so emotional.
If you're a Christian, you believe that men and women have free will. I mean, that's what the fall was right at the beginning, right? Adam made a mistake, and God, we believe, gives us free will to make decisions. So when we say God's in control, how does that affect free will? Of course, God, I'm sure, can do anything he wants to, but he gives man free will to make mistakes. And, does that mean he knows, when every sparrow drops? Does that mean he makes every sparrow drop? I don't think so. I think he gives man free will. And so here you are, a lot of people they're all against, let's say, the welfare programs and the giveaway programs and all like that. And mostly I am too. But all right, so you've been given this freedom as an American. If you don't fight for that freedom, aren't you just like the people who are on the receiving end of the welfare benefits? You're receiving all this, but you're giving nothing. Oh, I'm not interested in politics. Well, then you're not interested in who makes the rules and what the rules are that all of us have to live by. And we see what happens in the last 7 months when we have tyrannical people in these governor's offices, able to just one man directing every aspect of our life, telling us what we can wear on our face of all things, or where we can go and what we can do. That comes from people abnegating their responsibility. God gave us the responsibility to be good servants and good citizens in this country that we have been placed in, not to sit on the sidelines and wait for God to do everything. He acts through men. And so to me, it's just ridiculous to think that, do I pray? Absolutely. Do I believe in prayer? Absolutely. I don't pray to change the hearts of men. The reason is because God gives men that power. He doesn't change their hearts. They have to change their own hearts. I pray for things like physical things to happen. If there's a prisoner that I'm praying for, maybe who's unjustly, I pray that those bars of that door will open so he can walk free. And we had that experience with Castro, who had a political prisoner, very unjust. And I was praying to change Castro's heart. And one of my friends said, that God doesn't do that. God leaves it to Castro to change his heart. Pray that the man gets to walk free. And that's what happened. So if you believe in free will, you know that we are responsible with our freedom. And that means not just vote, but knowing what the heck you're voting for and who you're voting for. People are not informed. Going to the legislature and lobbying for bills, calling your representative and senators, not just accepting as though you deserve it, all these freedoms, because we don't deserve it. We were given these things. And it's our responsibility to pass on that freedom to the next generation, our children and grandchildren. If we sit idle, we won't pass it along.
Yes, faith without works is dead. And we're sent here to occupy, to commission, to have a purpose here and to do something. What are there any like superstars that you can name or call out that really helped get this moving to pass? I know you were big time helpful in making this to go forward, but is there anyone else that you can just name that you want to give kudos to?
Well, I mean, I don't think I've played any great role. I mean, I've been continuously using our newspapers to talk about what the truth is, what the law is, to begin with. The fact that John Bel Edwards here has been operating outside the law, contrary to law, it's ultra vires, it's called. It's interesting because when a government official operates outside the law and does things, he personally is responsible for the harm that he does. In my view, John Bel Edwards is subject to an amazing, unlimited suit against him personally for the damage that he's done because he's operated outside the law. And I say that because our emergency powers law has enumerated powers for the governor. He's operated beyond those things and he's caused great harm and damage. People like that need to be held accountable for the harm that they do. But are they? Yes. I mean, you have some heroes, like at Life Tabernacle Church, like at Firehouse Barbecue.
Yeah.
like at Callaway's gym. These are people who said, I'm a free American. I'm not a slave. I'm not a serf. I'm not a servant of the government. The government is not my boss. The governor is not my boss. The governor wasn't elected to change our lives, to change our culture. He has certain powers under our Constitution, and only those, no more. So these people have been willing to risk death, risk imprisonment. Because when the police come out to arrest you because you're, let's say, holding church, you don't know what's going to happen. You're putting your life on the line. So Danielle Bunch at Firehouse Barbecue is one. Mr. Callaway at Callaway's Gym, Reverend Tony Spell at Life Tabernacle. These are real heroes. And we have legislators. And I hesitate to name them because if I start naming one or two legislators, others will get mad because they played a role too. But we've had some stalwarts in the legislature, and we've had some weak ones, but who have come around. So you have to, it's like when someone converts, whether it's to Christianity or they convert their party or whatever, you have to welcome and say, you forgive everything in the past. We're all sinners. We all make mistakes, but you're with us now. So we got 65 who signed that petition. For a long time, it was only about 40. So we got to just forgive those that didn't sign now and welcome them into the fold, because they were absolutely essential to this wave of freedom now that we're having in Louisiana. And you're going to read in the press, they're going to not even acknowledge that this has happened. They're going to go with whatever John Bell Edwards says, well, this is unconstitutional, this is illegal, whatever. No. Either house of the legislature, by petition in Louisiana, has the right to end a declared emergency, and the House exercised that. Today, there is no order of emergency. There is no mask order. There is no limitation on attendance at anything in Louisiana this Saturday in the state of Louisiana.
Yes, we are free. Awesome. And what happens now? What is the deal? I mean, what's the next step? What's the process? Or is this it? Is this it?
Well, I mean, people have asked me the last 7 months, what do we do? Well, I'll tell them, call your representative, call your senator, call the governor's office and talk to them. But even more important has been exercise your freedom. I mean, what I do is I go to stores and I ignore that sign on the front that says mask required. And I ignore if somebody says, oh, you're breaking the law. No, there is no law. There is no law that says you have to wear a mask. That's a mandate, an illegal mandate by a governor operating outside the Constitution, outside the statute. So insist on your rights. If you want to have a meeting, civic organization, have the meeting. And if your restaurant refuses to have it, find another venue at someone's home or whatever, but don't stop living. Don't stop doing the things. Just demand that you be allowed to continue doing everyday things. And those are the things that give us pleasure. It's the everyday things. Just ask someone who's been in prison or who's been a POW, what do you miss? I mean, it's things like, having a cup of coffee with your friends or things like that. One of my friends had the COVID and was on the ventilator for 40 days. And the ventilator to me was the absolute worst thing that should be done to a person. It's a death sentence. But I asked him, what were your memories of that time? He said, I have no memory except one thing that seemed to keep coming back to me. And it was, I kept thinking about sitting on the front porch having coffee with my mom. And when he got out, and he did fully recover, and said, well, what are you doing now? He says, I spent a lot of time on the front porch with my wife drinking coffee. But what my point of that is, it's the ordinary things in life that we really treasure normally. Those have been taken away from us. We can't go to our favorite store. We can't go to a ball game. And like we said, can't go to your mom's funeral. Maybe you can go, but nobody else can go. It's just that John Bell Edwards has had no compassion. He talks about compassion for the people. He's no compassion for people living their lives. That's why we're here. We're here to live our lives and not to try to be safe from every possible risk. We wouldn't drive a car. We wouldn't leave our bed. And if we stayed in bed, it would probably collapse and the ceiling would fall. You never know what's going to happen in life. Just live. Have a great life for the days that we have here.
Yes, yes, yes. And vote. Go vote.
Voting and be informed. Here I'll tell you that we put out our newspapers. I showed you the St. George Leader. We have the Central City News. We also publish the Astruma Journal. You can go online and see those as well, and you can see we put out our recommendations on voting, and you can look at those and others' recommendations. But be informed about the candidates and about the issues so that you can make intelligent decisions. But it's getting harder and harder to get information. For example, my wife, she loves watching the Trump rallies. So she tunes in on YouTube yesterday to watch a Trump rally. As soon as she goes on it, on the screen, it says, danger, you may not want to watch this because this has untrue information in it. I mean, I'm appalled at the audacity of these people in the big tech companies who feel like they can just control every aspect of our lives. That's why I constantly put out on Facebook, I put our own website. I said, just remember this, if they turn out the lights on us, our website is centralcitynews.us, and you can reach us at centralcitynews@hotmail.com, because I don't know at what point they may turn us off. It's fine. I haven't been turned off, but I know so many people who have, and we have to keep lines of communication going. So we need to have those backups. Another thing that I do is I try not to post things anymore that their algorithms can catch up. So I don't necessarily mention certain names or certain things that they pick up on. People have to read between the lines sometimes and know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of a code here. I get that too. Yeah, and so and same thing, I've been telling people, because we have YouTube, Facebook, whatever, and I'm like, get on the newsletter, because I don't know when the last day is. I have over 100 friends that, and the list is growing, that have just poofed with no explanation. YouTube's gone. Some of them I didn't even have their personal text numbers or whatever, because we've all been just Facebook friends for over a decade. And it's like, how do you even reach these people? So I've been doing the same thing as encouraging people, go to the website, go to the other platforms, because if this one's down, at least maybe you can find me there and I can explain how to get this forward. But
well, let me mention this, that Rush has been preaching this for a long time. He said, don't tie your business to social media because they can cut you off like that. I mean, he was saying that 5 years ago. And this is why you don't see him on Facebook or Twitter and these other things. You go to his website or Rush 24/7 if you want to watch his programs, so everybody knows to do that. And I think that's what we need to do if we have a platform where we want to communicate with people. We've got to get people used to going to our own platform, our own website, or whatever it is. In case you're cut off. I know we got a notice from our social media yesterday, and I posted it saying that they're not going to accept advertising.
Yeah, me too.
The 27th of October until the 3rd of November. And the 3rd of November, there's going to be a ban on any kind of anything they call political, until further notice. They don't say when it. Now, I'm thinking, well, what if there's a lot of vote fraud and we want to buy an ad telling about the vote fraud? Well, they're not going to accept any ads after November 3rd. That seems a very strange thing. No ads after November 3rd. Why would that be? So I don't know. I mean, they're just it only takes a few people to take away our freedom, really, strategically placed. The only way we can overcome that is by massively things like going out and vote, or massively supporting our different free media that we believe in, and those speakers and ideas that we believe in. It's got to be massive to overcome what they're doing, because they're very powerful people. They've got a lot of money. And a lot of it's tied to China directly or indirectly too.
Well, and like I said, the people who haven't been shut down, who are still going, I call them patriots. They're all different vocations, but they're truthers, and they're getting the message out, and they're kind of going around the system of the programming news that's on here. We've all been shut down as far as advertising about a week and a half ago. Like, we got a notice, no more ads. Of course, our ads were more bent on truth and telling the truth, and just letting people know what's really going on, whether it was science or politics or anything. And so that was a little bit disruptive, but it is what it is, and we just have to pivot and go forward and do what we can do, and not get down and give up and just be like, oh well, they shut me down. Like, there's still responsibility, and there's still that opportunity to get out. You know, I wasn't personally in the military. My father served 22 years. My grandfather did too. All my uncles, everybody. My son-in-law is a Ranger, 2 deployments, you know, so, but I feel like me as a patriot, this is my way of being expressive and helping America. And even if it's just my little 2 cents here, obviously I'm not in politics, but truth matters. And being in every single person who is in America and even on the earth, truth matters. And so this is our opportunity and our time to rise up and actually walk it out, not just talk about it, not hide in the basement like somebody else, but we have to walk this out and actually make the choices, use the free will that's given to us, and actually do something. It doesn't take everybody. There's a tipping point. I mean, we just need a few people to really go like, this is enough. And if just a few of us did that, I think we would actually see something happen here. And obviously, we already did.
Dr. Sharnael, let me say this too, because we've talked a little bit about science here, and you were just talking about the search for truth. And let me tell you, I think the word science has been so misused. To me, what science is about is it's about the search for truth. And if we took medical science of what people believed 100 years ago, probably most of what they believed has now been proven to be false. What people believed 20 years ago, in a lot of cases, have been, I mean, they're certain of it, but it proved to be wrong. What science is about is the objective search for truth and being open to new ideas. And if you're closed to new ideas, then you never really will get to the truth, because it's always about the guy that has a different perspective from whatever everybody else believes right now. That's where the great advances come from. It's not from just accepting what the people, in fact, the experts are always so just mired in the status quo. They're not the ones that are really finding the new things. They're the ones who are trying to report, even if it's honest, report what they think things are now. They're not the guys who are on the forefront finding the new things. So when you shut down discussion, and anybody who comes forward with their evidence or their arguments, we don't want to hear that. That's not science. No, you're the one who's a dictator and a fraud trying to prevent people from getting to the truth. We need to be open to new ideas. We need to listen, and we'll find that, for example, in this whole COVID debate, what have you heard about the immune system? Where have all these great experts, Dr. Fauci and the governors, where do they ever talk about strengthening our immune system? We talk about comorbidities, but when do we talk about people, hey, losing weight, exercising, eating right, and so forth, not doing this, not doing that? We don't hear anything about that. It's all about, just wear your mask. As though a mask somehow gives you good health. This is about your strength as a person, whether you have a physical body that's able to withstand. We're subjected to viruses every day by the millions, and they just bounce off. They don't make a difference to us. And if you're strong, it's especially true. But there's no discussion, no selling of people being strong. I know when I was in high school, for example, we had the president's physical fitness program. And in my class of 30, we had to do, like 25 push-ups within 30 seconds. And we had to do 60 sit-ups within 75 seconds. And we had to run in place, I think, 250 beats within like a minute. And we had just a whole thing which seemed impossible. When we started, it was like 2 people could do it. By the end of the semester, all 30 could do it.
That's awesome.
All 30 can do it. But it was about, they don't even have PE in a lot of schools today for a lot of kids. It's very important that we be physically strong, that we be mentally strong, that we be morally strong. We have to have people with courage to even survive as a nation, much less to prosper. And we need entrepreneurs who take risk, not who hide. When you are a business person, you understand you have to take risks. And like so many people, there have been times in my life where we had nothing, and I literally put my last dollar in my business, because that's all we had. We had to do that. You have to take a risk to be successful in life and not hide.
That's amazing. You're an awesome person. Thank you so much. Tell us any last words that you have, and also how, again, if you could just remind everybody your website and how to get in touch. I'm going to have you actually share this on your Facebook page so your people can do that. Normally I do that at the beginning, and I've just got.
Well, I think we have a lot of Facebook pages, but one place you could go would be Central City News on Facebook. Also, my personal page, Woody Jenkins on Facebook, because you'll get most of what we post on those two sites, and they're a little different. Also, just our website. Our website's not as good. It's there so you know about it, so that if the lights go out, you know, it's there, and we'll really beef up our website. But that's centralcitynews.us. There is woodyjenkins.com, and I have a few things there. But I would say the main thing is centralcitynews.us if things go bad, and Facebook, Central City News, if things are still okay. Awesome. And Central City News at Hotmail is a good way to reach me.
Awesome, awesome.
But can I just say this? We have an election. I want to encourage people to educate themselves. What the election is really about is policy. It's not whether you like somebody's tweets or their personality.
Yes.
That's so irrelevant. What's going to matter is whether we still have our freedom and we still have our country. And that's about policy, things like the Supreme Court and like our military and like our frontiers, and whether we have undue taxes, whether we have rioting in the streets. So policy is what an election, this election in particular, is all about. Think about the kind of world that you want in terms of freedom. And so make your decision that way. I think you'll make a good one. I
agree 100,000,000%. You're a great patriot and a great person, and I just appreciate your time so much.
Thank you. It's mutual, and I appreciate this opportunity very much.
Yes, I hope everybody who's watching, whether you're here locally or wherever, that you will follow this guy, check out what he's doing, check out his newspapers, look at his website, and definitely too go to Swiftfire, Swift as in quickfire.org. Get on the newsletter. I don't know how long this, I really do. I mean, I got another notification this morning. So I would love to stay in contact with you guys, and definitely want to make sure. I have several interviews similar to this that you guys might be jumping in and appreciating. And again, I'm just so thankful for what we can do together. Do not be afraid. Get out there, stand up for yourself, take courage, do something kind and loving today, wherever you are. And let's be Christ-like. Let's love, and let's do our best in the best way that we can, moment to moment to moment. Otherwise, what else is there? So stay tuned, keep watching. Love well. And again, thank you so much, Mr. Jenkins, for your time. I will definitely be in touch, and we'll see where this thing goes. Hopefully they will put this out on the quote real news. I say that's not the real news anymore. All these other people have had to be the real news, but we'll see where this goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.